Well, you mentioned something, Charlie, that I thought was impressive. You walked around and you saw the entire monument memorial. You mentioned the colonnades of the states. Could you elaborate a little more on what each of those colonnades said and did, and the message that it gave?
Yeah, I will pass around the picture because it's a little hard to visualize, but each state had a column. It's a white, I don't know what material, maybe marble, I expect. And it had the name, of course, at the top. And again, the idea of the unity, I think, is the key, is there were all these columns all around and all together. And I can't find it right now, but I had my picture taken with a Nebraska column. But it was a good symbol. I think the Leo Daly Company that's open here in Omaha had a hand in the design. There was another company involved also. But it's somebody was with a great vision put it together.
Ray, what were some of the things specifically you mentioned earlier that you saw, but the ones that stick in your mind today after you've seen it, that still remember that if you went back and you'd want to point this out to people of what it meant significantly to you? What is it about that memorial that maybe hit you the hardest?
Well, it was so much nicer than I ever realized it was, and it was just so nice to see all of the states together on what each had a column. And one thing about everything that happened, I can't believe how well organized the Williams did on this. The people in the wheelchairs were all taken care of, and it just, everything went perfect.
We even had lunch.
every time it was dinner time, we ate.
That's wonderful.
And then the preliminary things, we all got together before we left and had a banquet, and it was just great. And then after we got home, we had a kind of reunion a year afterwards, and it's just unbelievable what the Williams did for us. And how smooth everything went. Everything was just organized perfect.
Yeah.
Ray was on the second to the last flight, and we called it Operation Airlift. So we took a 747 2 days in a row. Now there were people in town that tried to talk me out of it. It was too risky because a health problem on the plane, it has to drop down in Cleveland, or a mechanical problem with that 747, because we had every hotel room in the Holiday Inn. Now it's what's it called, 72nd Grover, Oceans of Fun or whatever it is. So we had every room in that hotel. We had every room in the Comfort on the south side of Grover, and we had most of that Ramada on the frontage part. So there's 403 seats on a 747. We put 375 on Thursday. That's 65 first class and 27 in the upper deck. So we took 375 veterans on Thursday, and then 24 hours later, we took a whole nother 375. So I'll never forget the very last flight, and we're sitting on the tarmac, all 10 buses, because we didn't go through the terminal because there's only so much energy in the glass here. We didn't want to wear them out. So the buses pull right beside the plane. So at 4:30 in the morning, we're sitting there for 30 minutes, waiting till 5 o'clock when we can load. So everybody's looking out the window at this huge plane. I mean, it looks like the space shuttle times 10. I mean, anybody's been on a 747, this is a big bird. So I'm walking in the dark down the aisle of one of the buses, and a veteran pulled on my sleeve. He says, "Can I talk to you?" And I said, "Sure." So I knelt down beside him, and he said, "I'm scared to get on that plane." He says, "I've never flown before."
Oh, boy.
And I said, "Well, let's talk about it." I said, "You survived the Depression." He said, "Very difficult on my family." I said, "You survived World War II." He says, "Combat Pacific." I said, how old are you? He said, 93. I said, 93. I said, by anybody's measure, you have already won the race. You survived the Depression. You survived World War II. You survived life in general. I said, what's the worst that can happen? You die on that plane? So what? He looked at me and he said, let's go. So the thing I want to say about the generation and doing the honor flights, no whining, no complaining. It was all about, tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do my best to do it. And baby boomers, I'm 60. The joke goes that if you took baby boomers on a trip like this, 10 to 15% of us would whine about the mustard on the turkey sandwich. Right? But with this group, there was none of that.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah. and the humor of the generation. One of the flights, I don't remember which one, but the buses pull up to the outside gate down at Epling. So they took the bomb-sniffing dogs around each of the buses. One of our veterans yelled out, I hope those dogs can't sniff out Viagra. That's the way it was. There was no whining or anything. It was all, and those guys, and we took a dozen women veterans, they had to walk up those stairs.
Oh boy.
And on that 747, that thing's up in the air.
The cockpit is just...
Yeah, well then Ray got to go in the cockpit of the 747.
Really?
He's a pilot, so they took him into the cockpit. So
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
In case it broke down, you knew how to fix the plane, right?
Yeah, I was just dumbfounded when the pilot asked me if I'd care to come in and sit down.
Really? Afraid you might have to fly that bird?
We had a little time, and I was just looking the plane over, and I walked by, and I just peeked in the door there, and he says, come in and sit down.
Well, that's wonderful. I remember, Bill, you mentioned one little hitch that was overcome, but one of the unique things about each of these veterans had one thing in their pocket, each of them. Elaborate a little on that, because that is so typical.
After we got past the gate, now we pull up beside the plane. Now it's time for TSA screening. Now, on one hand, you're dealing with the men and the women who saved the world for democracy, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, because of Islamic terrorists, this is what we have to deal with at the airport. I mean, just because of World War II veterans, they're not going to let them just walk onto the plane. The problem is, a third of them are carrying a weapon. Well, what's the weapon? Pocket knife. So TSA would gather a bag of knives this big, write their name on it. So stupid, So they get the bag, and then the captain would look out the window and say, "Bring that bag up here." So TSA would run the bag up the stairs, hand it to the captain. Captain hands it to the flight attendants and says, "Give them their knives back."
I was talking to people today and talking to the grandparents about the grandparents, and they said almost everyone to the one had a knife in their overall.
And we tried to tell them, but it's, we always dealt with it. And another great thing about going to the World War II Memorial, you know who was always there? I think he made it. I think one time he didn't make it was Senator Bob Dole.
Yeah.
He was there on our November flight when it was freezing. We had special stocking hats made, red stocking hats with Heartland Honor Flight on them that are a real collector's item now. And he was there in July when it was terribly hot. But he was instrumental in the funding of that and developing the World War II Memorial. And to have him stand there for the whole time, and there's other states coming in, and the senator would stand there, and we always told everybody, you guys remember this? Because he's so fragile in his body now, and he only has the one hand, and we always told everybody, everybody loves him so much that they tend to grab his, and you can see him wince if they squeeze his hand too much, and he's real fragile in the body, but guys would try to hug him and stuff, but he was in there every time.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, neat.